The human quarters were small but comfortable. There were beds, food, and windows that looked out at the endless stars. But no one was sleeping. No one was eating. Everyone was waiting. "They have been talking for 6 hours," Captain Tejo said, checking his watch for the 100th time. "That cannot be good." Dr. Mina was pacing back and forth. "Maybe we pushed too hard. Maybe we should have waited. Built relationships first. Learned more about their politics. And spent 50 years being ignored?" Commander Haiyan Wu shook his head. "No, we did the right thing. If they wanted quiet servants, they invited the wrong species." Yuna sat by the window, watching the station lights flicker in the darkness. She was thinking about Earth, about the billions of people waiting to hear what happened, about the weight of every word she had spoken. "I keep wondering," she said quietly, "what the other young species think. The ones who accepted the observation period. The ones who have been waiting for hundreds of years. You think they support us?" Tejo asked. "I think they are afraid. But fear can change. Fear can become hope. If someone shows them it is possible to stand up." A chime sounded. The door slid open. Elder Soren entered, followed by 2 guards. Her silver face was hard to read, but her voice was stiff. "The Elder Council has reached a decision. Ambassador Yuna, you are summoned to the Chamber of Judgment." Yuna stood. "The Chamber of Judgment? That sounds serious." "It is. It is. Very serious." Elder Soren hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "I tried to speak on your behalf. I told them you were simply young and foolish. I suggested a warning and a fresh start. And?" Elder Korath refused. "He says you must face the full council and answer for your disrespect. If they find against you, humanity will be expelled from the galactic community forever." The room went cold. Forever. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Haiyan Wu stepped forward. "What happens to expelled species?" Elder Soren looked at the floor. "They are isolated. No trade, no communication, no protection. If another species attacks them, the council does not interfere." "So we would be alone," Mina whispered. "Completely alone in a hostile galaxy." "Yes." Yuna took a deep breath. She looked at her team, at Tejo's worried eyes, at Maya's pale face, at Haiyan Wu's clenched fists. They had followed her this far. They had trusted her. Now everything depended on what happened next. "Then I will go to the chamber," she said. "I will face the elders, and I will tell them the truth about who we are." "Ambassador," Tejo started. "No." Yuna raised her hand. "This is my responsibility. I spoke first. I challenged them first. If anyone pays the price, it should be me." "We will come with you," Mina said firmly. "All of us." Yuna smiled slightly. "I was hoping you would say that." The Chamber of Judgment was located at the very heart of the station. It was a circular room with no windows, no platforms, no hierarchy. Just a flat floor and walls of smooth black stone. The 5 elders stood in a line. Behind them, hundreds of species watched through floating screens. The whole galaxy was watching. Elder Korath spoke first. "Ambassador Yuna of Earth, you have been summoned to answer for your actions in the Grand Hall. You questioned ancient traditions. You accused the Council of unfairness. You disrupted a sacred ceremony of welcome." Yuna stood in the center of the room, her team behind her. "I did. Do you deny these accusations?" "No, I do not deny them. I meant every word." Murmurs rippled through the watching screens. The Lumari elder flickered with annoyance. "Then you admit your guilt?" "I admit my actions. But I do not believe they were wrong." Elder Korath's 4 eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself, quickly." Yuna took a step forward. "You call your rules ancient traditions. You say they have served you well for 10,000 years. But served who? The founding species who sit at the top and never fall? Or the younger species who climb slowly and never reach the top? She turned to face the watching screens. I have studied your history. Not just the official records, but the stories that older species tell when they think no one is listening. Do you know what I learned? Silence. I learned that the Velari were once a young species, just like us. They were poor. They were weak. They were ignored. But they fought for their place. They demanded to be heard. And when they finally reached the top, they changed the rules so that no one else could do the same. Elder Soren made a sharp sound of shock. The other Velari delegates on the screens looked furious. That is a lie. The Lumari elder flared. The founding species earned their position through wisdom and service. Maybe, Mina said, stepping forward with her tablet. But I found records. Old records that were supposed to be erased. They tell a different story. They tell of rebellions crushed, of species punished for asking questions, of votes that were changed to keep the same leaders in power. She held up the tablet. Data scrolled across the screen. This is the truth you have been hiding. This is why you need 50 years of silence, so new species learn to obey before they learn to question. The chamber erupted. Elders shouted. Delegates on screens argued and pointed. The black walls seemed to vibrate with tension. Elder Korath raised his voice above the noise. Enough! These are lies and manipulations. You are trying to destroy our great community. No, Una said calmly. We are trying to make it better. She looked directly at the elder. On Earth, we have a long history. We have made terrible mistakes. We have had tyrants and empires and systems of control. But we have also learned something important. No system lasts forever if it ignores the voices of those at the bottom. She gestured to the screens, to the hundreds of watching species. Look at them. Look at the younger species who have been waiting for centuries. Do they look happy? Do they look like they believe in this system? Or do they look tired and hopeless, waiting for something to change? No one answered. But on many screens, Una saw something new. She saw delegates nodding. She saw eyes filled with cautious hope. She saw beings who had never dared to speak suddenly sitting up straighter. We are not asking for war, Una continued. We are not asking to destroy your council. We are asking for fairness. We are asking for the right to speak, to trade, to participate, not in 50 years, but now. We are asking you to remember what it was like to be young and ignored and desperate for change. Elder Korath stared at her for a long time. His stone face was impossible to read. Finally, he spoke. You speak of history. You speak of fairness. But you forget one thing. We have the power. We have always had the power. And power does not share itself with those who demand. Una nodded slowly. You are right. Power does not share itself. That is why power must sometimes be taken. The words hung in the air. Commander Haiyan Wu smiled grimly. Captain Taeho's hand moved slightly toward his communicator. Mina clutched her tablet like a weapon. Outside the station, invisible to everyone in the chamber, the human fleet waited in the darkness between stars. They were not there to fight. They were there to remind everyone that humans were not helpless. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the elders felt something they had almost forgotten: fear. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. It came not through radio waves or satellite signals, but through a small silver sphere that appeared in the middle of the United Nations building. The sphere floated 3 feet above the ground and glowed with soft blue light. When it opened, a hologram appeared. The hologram showed a tall creature with gray skin and large purple eyes. It spoke in perfect English. Greetings, humans of Earth. The Galactic Council has observed your species for 200 years. We have decided that you are ready. You are invited to join our great community of stars. Send your representative to the coordinates we provide. We await your response." The sphere closed and fell to the ground. The world changed forever. Ambassador Yuna was chosen to lead Earth's delegation. She was 42 years old, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She had spent 20 years as a diplomat, solving problems between nations that hated each other. Now she would speak for all of humanity. "You understand what this means," the Secretary General told her in a private meeting. "Every word you say will represent our entire species. Every action you take will shape how they see us." Yuna nodded slowly. "I understand. But I need to ask something important. What is it? What do we want from this? Do we want to join them as equals? Or are we happy to be the new species that sits in the back and stays quiet?" The Secretary General was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. "We want to be equals. We did not survive ice ages, wars, and plagues just to bow our heads to strangers." Yuna smiled back. "Good. Then I know what to do." She chose her team carefully. Captain Tejo would handle security. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely showed emotion. But behind his serious expression was a brilliant mind. He had led rescue missions in disaster zones and kept peace in dangerous regions. He knew how to stay calm when everything went wrong. Dr. Mina would be their cultural advisor. She was young, only 31, but she had studied the history of every major civilization on Earth. She understood how societies grew, changed, and sometimes fell apart. More importantly, she understood why people followed rules and why they sometimes broke them. Commander Hyan Wu led the military escort. He was not there to fight. He was there to show that humans were not weak or helpless. His presence was a message. We come in peace, but we are not afraid. The team also included scientists, translators, and medical officers. 50 humans in total. They boarded a specially built spacecraft and left Earth on a cold December morning. Millions of people watched the launch on their screens. Some cried. Some cheered. Everyone understood that nothing would be the same again. The journey took 3 weeks. The Galactic Council had provided a faster-than-light engine as a gift. The humans did not fully understand how it worked, but their engineers learned quickly. During the trip, Yuna studied everything they knew about the Council. There were over 200 species in the Galactic Council. Some had been members for thousands of years. Others had joined more recently. The Council controlled trade, settled disputes, and made laws that everyone followed. At least, that was what the official documents said. "There is something strange here," Mina said one evening, looking at her tablet. "Every new species that joins the Council goes through something called the observation period." "What does that mean?" Tejo asked. "It means they cannot speak in Council meetings for 50 cycles. A cycle is about 1 Earth year. So for 50 years, they just watch and listen. They have no voice, no vote, no power." Yuna frowned. 50 years of silence? That seems extreme. "It gets worse," Mina continued. "During this time, the new species must follow all Council rules without question. They cannot trade directly with other species. They cannot form alliances. They cannot do anything without permission from their assigned mentor species." Commander Hyan Wu laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So they want us to be good little children for half a century. Sit down, shut up, and do what we are told." "It appears so," Mina said quietly. Yuna stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars streamed past like rivers of light. Somewhere ahead was the Galactic Council. Somewhere ahead was a test that would determine humanity's future. Who created these rules? She asked. "The founding species. The Valari, the Karathi, and 2 others. They've been in power for over 10,000 years. And has any new species ever challenged these rules? Mina shook her head. Not according to the records. Every species accepted the observation period. Every single one. Yuna turned back to face her team. Her eyes were calm but filled with determination. Then we will be the first to say no. The room went silent. Taeho raised an eyebrow. Hyanwu crossed his arms. Mina's mouth fell open slightly. Ambassador, Taeho said carefully, are you sure that is wise? We know almost nothing about them. We do not know their military strength. We do not know their technology. If we anger them on the first day, I am not talking about starting a war, Yuna interrupted. I am talking about standing up for ourselves. There's a difference. She walked back to the table and sat down. Think about our history. Every time humans accepted unfair treatment without question, it led to suffering. Every time we stood up and demanded fairness, we moved forward. This is no different. But these are aliens, Mina said. Their culture, their values, everything is different from ours. Maybe, or maybe not. Yuna leaned forward. From what we know, the older species control everything. The younger species have no power. Does that sound familiar? Does that not sound like every empire, every kingdom, every unfair system we have ever seen on Earth? No one answered. They did not need to. They all understood. We will be polite, Yuna continued. We will be respectful. We will not threaten anyone or break any laws. But we will not stay silent for 50 years. We will not accept rules that treat us like lesser beings. If they want us to join their community, they will have to accept us as we are. 3 days later, the human ship arrived at the Galactic Council station. It was enormous, larger than any city on Earth. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Light shone from millions of windows. A Valari diplomat greeted them at the docking bay. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin and eyes like polished stones. Her voice was soft and musical. Welcome, humans. I am Elder Soren. I will be your guide and mentor during your observation period. Please follow me. Yuna stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you, Elder Soren. We are honored to be here. But before we proceed, I have some questions about the observation period. Elder Soren's expression did not change, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Questions? New species do not usually have questions. They have gratitude. Yuna smiled. Humans are different. We have many questions. I hope you are ready to answer them. For the first time in 3,000 years, Elder Soren did not know what to say. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was the most impressive room Yuna had ever seen. It stretched upward for what seemed like forever, with floating platforms arranged in a great spiral. Each platform held delegates from a different species. There were creatures of every shape and size. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had no bodies at all. Just clouds of glowing energy. At the very top sat the Elder Council. 5 platforms, 5 species. These were the founders, the rulers, the ones who had written the laws that governed hundreds of worlds. Elder Soren led the human delegation to a platform near the bottom. It was small and plain, with simple seats and no decorations. The message was clear. You are new here. You are not important. Please sit, Elder Soren said. The session will begin shortly. Remember, during your observation period, you are not permitted to speak. You may only watch and learn. Yuna sat down, but she did not look at the floor like the other new species did. She looked up. She watched. She counted the platforms and noted which species sat where. She saw patterns. The oldest species sat highest. The newest sat lowest. It was a ladder, and everyone knew their place on it. Captain Taiho leaned close to her. 87 platforms below the Elder Council. 42 species have been here for over 1,000 years. The rest are younger. The youngest before us joined 200 years ago. And where do they sit? Yuna whispered back. Third row from the bottom. Still very low. Still no real power. The session began with a sound like 1,000 bells ringing at once. An elder from the Karathi species rose from his platform. He was massive, with gray stone-like skin and 4 arms. His voice echoed through the hall. Today we welcome a new species to our great community. The humans of Earth have accepted our invitation. They will now begin their observation period of 50 cycles. During this time, they will learn our ways and prove their worth. He gestured toward the human platform. Do the humans accept these terms? This was the moment. Every eye in the hall turned to the small platform at the bottom. Yuna stood up slowly. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady. Elder Karth, we thank you for this welcome. We are honored to be here amongst so many great civilizations. She paused. However, we have questions about the observation period. A wave of whispers spread through the hall. Some species had never heard a new member speak at all during their first session. Speaking was not forbidden in this moment, but it was highly unusual. It was not polite. Elder Korath's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Questions? The observation period is ancient tradition. It has served us well for 10,000 years. I understand, Yuna said. But traditions can be questioned. That is how they improve. The whispers grew louder. On the elder platforms, the 5 founding species exchanged glances. Elder Soren, standing near the human platform, looked deeply uncomfortable. What questions do you have? Elder Korath asked. His voice had grown colder. First, why 50 cycles? Why not 10 or 5? What purpose does such a long silence serve? It allows new species to learn our culture, our laws, our values. Rushing into full membership leads to mistakes. I see. And during this time, we cannot trade directly with other species? Correct. All trade must go through your mentor species, who takes a percentage of every transaction. The hall went completely silent. No one had ever asked about money on the first day. It was considered extremely rude. Elder Korath's stone face showed no expression, but his voice hardened. The mentor species provides guidance and protection. A small fee is reasonable. How small? Yuna pressed. According to the documents we received, the fee is 30% of all trade value. For 50 years. That seems more than small. Now there were gasps. Several species on lower platforms leaned forward with interest. This was becoming very entertaining. Captain Tejo stood up beside Yuna. His face was calm, but his voice carried weight. We did not travel across the galaxy to sit silently while others profit from our work. We came here to be partners, not servants. Elder Soren finally spoke. This is highly irregular. New species do not negotiate. They accept. Why not? Dr. Mina stood up as well. She held her tablet, filled with notes and research. I have studied the history of this council. I found something interesting. The rules about the observation period were written when there were only 12 member species. Now there are over 200. The rules have not changed in 10,000 years. Does that not seem strange? An elder from another founding species, a creature made of shifting light called a Lumari, flickered with agitation. The rules exist for good reasons. Young species are impulsive. They make mistakes. The observation period protects them from themselves. Protects them? Mina replied. Or controls them. I noticed that no species has ever risen above the 3rd tier in less than 500 years. The same founding species have held power since the beginning. The system does not allow anyone to challenge them. The Lumari flared brightly. You know nothing of our ways. You have been here for 1 hour. 1 hour is enough to see unfairness, Mina said simply. Commander Haiyan Wu remained seated, but he spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. On Earth, we had systems like this. Kings who ruled forever. Empires that never changed. Do you know what happened to them? What? Elder Korath demanded. They fell. Every single one. Because people got tired of waiting. They got tired of being told to stay quiet and follow rules that only benefited those at the top. The hall erupted. Some species shouted in anger. Others shouted in support. The floating platforms trembled slightly as emotions ran high. Elder Korath raised all 4 arms. Silence. The noise stopped immediately. When an elder spoke, everyone listened. That was the rule. Humans, Elder Korath said slowly, you are playing a dangerous game. You do not understand how things work here. You do not understand the consequences of your words. Yuna stood tall. Then explain them to us. Help us understand. But do not expect us to accept rules without knowing why they exist. The rules exist because we say they exist. That is enough. No, Yuna said quietly. It is not. For a long moment, no one moved. The oldest and most powerful being in the galaxy stared at the newest and smallest species. It should have been no contest. It should have been like an ocean staring at a single drop of water dot. But Yuna did not look away. Neither did Taeho. Neither did Mina. Neither did Haiyan Wu. 50 humans stood on that tiny platform at the bottom of the Great Hall, and not one of them lowered their eyes. Finally, Elder Korath spoke. This session is suspended. The Elder Council will discuss this matter privately. Humans, you will wait in your quarters. Do not cause any more trouble. He turned and floated away. The other elders followed. The hall began to empty. Elder Soren approached Yuna. Her silver face was pale with shock. Do you understand what you have done? In 10,000 years, no species has ever questioned the elders on their first day. Yuna nodded. Then it was long overdue. She turned and led her team back to their quarters. Behind them, hundreds of delegates watched and whispered. The humans had broken every rule of politeness. They had embarrassed the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had started something that could not be stopped, and they had only been there for 1 hour. 3 days passed. 3 days of arguments, meetings, and secret negotiations. The Galactic Council had not seen anything like this in its entire history. Species that had been silent for centuries were suddenly talking. Ideas that had been forbidden were suddenly being discussed openly. The old order was falling apart, piece by piece. Yuna and her team remained in their quarters. They received visitors, constantly delegates from dozens of species wanting to talk, to share stories, to ask questions. The humans listened to all of them. We've been members for 500 years, a delegate from the Mirathi species said. She was a tall being with feathers instead of hair and eyes that changed color with her emotions. In all that time, we have never moved above the 4th tier. Our requests for better trade terms are always rejected. Our suggestions for rule changes are always ignored. Why did you never speak up before? Maya asked. The Mirathi's feathers flattened with shame. We were afraid. The elders punished species that complained. We saw what happened to the Voss, to the Kelani, to all the others who challenged the system. We thought silence was safer. And now? Yuna asked. The Mirathi's feathers rose again, this time with hope. Now we see that we are not alone. Now we see that change is possible. You have given us courage, Ambassador. More than you know. Similar conversations happened again and again. Species from every tier came to speak with the humans. They shared their frustrations, their dreams, their ideas for a better council. Una recorded everything, asked thoughtful questions, and promised nothing she could not deliver. On the third day, Elder Soren visited again. She looked tired. Her silver skin was dull, and her eyes showed stress. "The council will meet tomorrow for a final vote," she said. "The elders want to expel humanity, but they do not have enough support. Too many species are siding with you." "What will happen?" Toe asked. Elder Soren shook her head slowly. "I do not know. This has never happened before. The elders are afraid. Afraid beings do unpredictable things." Una nodded. "We are ready for whatever comes." Elder Soren hesitated at the door. "Ambassador, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Why did you do this?" "You could have accepted the observation period. You could have waited, built power slowly, changed things from within. Why did you choose to challenge everything on the first day?" Una thought about the question carefully. "Because waiting teaches you to accept injustice. Because silence becomes a habit. Because every day you stay quiet, it becomes harder to speak up." She smiled slightly. "Humans have learned this lesson many times. We decided not to learn it again." Elder Soren studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she bowed her head slightly. "I think I understand. When I was young, I had thoughts like yours, dreams of change. But I was taught to stay quiet, to follow the rules, to be patient. I have been patient for 2,000 years, and nothing has changed." "It can change now," Una said. "If you help us." Elder Soren looked up. Her eyes were bright with something Una had not seen before: determination. "I will do what I can." The final session of the council was held in the Grand Hall. Every species was present, either in person or through screens. The atmosphere was electric with tension and possibility. Elder Korith stood at the center of the highest platform. His stone face was as unreadable as ever, but his voice was strained. "We have gathered to decide the fate of humanity and the future of our council. The humans have challenged our traditions, questioned our authority, and caused unprecedented disruption. The elders proposed their expulsion." He paused, looking out at the massive gathering. "However, after much discussion, it is clear that this proposal does not have enough support. Many species have indicated they will vote against expulsion." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the hall. This was the first time in history that the elders had admitted they could not get what they wanted. Elder Korith continued, his voice bitter. "Therefore, we must find another solution. The floor is open for proposals." Una stood up immediately. Her voice carried clearly through the vast hall. "I have a proposal. Not for humanity alone, but for all species who have been waiting for change." She walked to the center of her platform, where everyone could see her. "First, eliminate the observation period. New species should have a voice from day one. They should learn by participating, not by watching in silence. Second, reform the trade rules. Direct trade between any species should be allowed, without mentor fees or permissions. Fair competition will benefit everyone. Third, create a rotating council of representatives from all tiers. No more permanent elder control. Leadership should be earned and renewed, not inherited forever. Fourth, open all records. Every decision, every punishment, every hidden action should be available for all species to see. Transparency creates trust. Fifth, establish a process for changing rules through fair voting. Any species should be able to propose changes, and all species should have equal votes." She finished and stood waiting. The hall was completely silent. Then, from the lower platforms, applause began. It spread upward, growing louder. Species that had never applauded anything in council history were clapping, cheering, calling out support. The Torini delegate spoke loudly. "We second this proposal." We call for an immediate vote. As do we, called the Mirathi delegate. And we, shouted a dozen other voices. Elder Korath raised his arms for silence. His face showed defeat, but also something else, perhaps relief? Perhaps he was tired of holding together a system that no longer worked. Very well, he said heavily. We will vote. The vote was not even close. 147 species voted for Yuna's proposal. Only 43 voted against. The old order had fallen. A new era had begun. In the chaos that followed, Yuna was surrounded by grateful delegates. Species that had never spoken to each other before were making introductions, forming alliances, planning for the future. The great hall buzzed with energy, and hope. Elder Soren found Yuna in the crowd. You did it, she said, her voice filled with wonder. In 3 days, you changed 10,000 years of history. Yuna shook her head. We did not do it alone. We simply gave voice to what everyone was already feeling. The change was already waiting. It just needed someone to start. Later that night, Yuna stood by the window in her quarters. The station lights sparkled against the endless darkness. Her team gathered around her, exhausted but happy. What happens now? Commander Hyan Wu asked. Now the real work begins, Yuna replied. Building new systems is harder than tearing down old ones. There will be problems, mistakes, arguments. It will take years, maybe decades, to create something truly fair. But we will be part of it, Mina said, from the beginning. Not waiting on the sidelines. Yes, Yuna smiled. We will be part of it. Captain Tejo raised a small cup filled with tea they had brought from Earth. To the future, whatever it holds. The team raised their cups together. To the future. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting for news. Billions of people would soon learn that their representatives had changed the galaxy. Not through war, not through conquest, but through words and courage and the simple refusal to accept unfairness. The Galactic Council would never be the same. The old rules were gone. New rules would be written by all species together, as equals. It was messy, uncertain, and terrifying. It was also the most human thing that had ever happened in the history of the universe, and it was only the beginning. The silence in the chamber of judgment stretched like a thin wire about to snap. Every being held their breath. Every screen showed frozen faces. The galaxy waited to see what would happen next. Elder Korath broke the silence first. His voice was cold and sharp like breaking ice. Are you threatening us, human? Are you saying you will use force against the Galactic Council? Yuna shook her head slowly. No, I am saying that we will not be pushed aside. We will not be silenced. We will not accept a future where our voices do not matter. Pretty words, the Lumari elder flickered. But words do not change reality. You are one small species. We are 200. Your fleet, whatever size it may be, cannot stand against the combined power of the Council. Commander Hyan Wu stepped forward. His voice was calm, almost casual. You are correct. In a direct war, we would lose. But that is not the only kind of conflict that exists. He looked around the chamber, then at the screens showing hundreds of watching delegates. How many of those species would fight for you? How many would risk their people, their resources, their futures, to enforce rules that have never helped them? No one answered. But on screen after screen, delegates looked away. They shifted uncomfortably. They whispered to each other. You see, Hyan Wu continued, we are not threatening war. We are pointing out a simple truth. Your power depends on cooperation. If enough species stop cooperating, your power disappears. The Valari elder finally spoke. She was older than Soren, with skin like polished silver and eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Young one, you do not understand what you are doing. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. Without us, there would be chaos, wars, destruction. Would there? Mina asked. Or is that just what you tell yourselves to justify your control? She stepped forward with her tablet again. I looked at the actual data. Before the Council existed, yes, there were conflicts. But after the Council formed, conflicts did not disappear. They simply changed. Instead of wars between equal species, there were police actions against those who questioned the rules. Instead of open battles, there were economic punishments and trade blockades. She showed the data on her tablet. In the last 5,000 years, the Council has punished over 60 species for rule violations. 30 of them no longer exist. Their planets are empty. Their people are gone. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Many species had not known this. The records have been hidden, buried, forgotten. What happened to them? Someone asked from one of the screens. It was a delegate from a middle-tier species, a being with blue skin and nervous eyes. The elders did not answer. They were removed, Captain Tejo said quietly. Not by war, but by isolation. Cut off from trade, from technology, from help. Left alone until they faded away. That is what happens, Yuna said. When you build a system based on silence and obedience instead of fairness and cooperation. Elder Korath's stone face finally showed emotion. Anger. Deep. Burning anger that had been building for hours. You dare to judge us? You, who have been in space for barely 50 years. You, who still fight among yourselves over resources and territory. You know nothing of ruling a galaxy. You are right, Yuna admitted. We are young. We are inexperienced. We make mistakes every day. But we also learn. We change. We grow. Can you say the same? She looked at each elder in turn. When was the last time you changed a rule because it was unfair? When was the last time you listened to a younger species and actually did what they asked? When was the last time you admitted you were wrong? The elders said nothing. Their silence was its own answer. Humans are not perfect, Yuna continued. We have done terrible things in our history. We have had wars, oppression, cruelty. But we have also had something else. Movements for change. People who stood up and said, "This is wrong. We must do better." And slowly, painfully, we did get better. She spread her arms wide. That is what we are asking for here. Not perfection. Not revolution. Just the chance to be heard. Just the opportunity to help make things better. For a long moment, no one spoke. The chamber was completely still. Then, from one of the lower screens, a voice emerged. I support the humans. Everyone turned to look. The speaker was a delegate from a species called the Tarini small beings, with green scales and bright yellow eyes. They had been council members for 300 years, stuck on the same low tier, never advancing. We have been silent for too long, the Tarini delegate said. We have accepted rules that never helped us. We have watched as our concerns were ignored and our requests were denied. The humans are right. It is time for change. Another voice spoke. Then another. Then another. Species from the lower tiers, from the middle tiers, even from some of the higher platforms. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to show that the elders were not as powerful as they believed. Elder Korath watched this happening with growing alarm. He had expected the humans to stand alone. He had expected the other species to stay quiet and obedient as they always had. But something was different now. Something had shifted. This is madness, the Lumari elder declared. You are all being manipulated by these newcomers. They know nothing. They will lead you to ruin. Maybe, the Tarini delegate replied. Or maybe they will lead us to something better. Either way, we are tired of waiting. The chamber up dead in the chaos. Elders shouted orders. Delegates argued and debated. The carefully controlled structure of the council began to crack. In the middle of it all, Una stood quietly with her team. They had done what they came to do. They had planted a seed. Now they had to see if it would grow. Hai and Wu moved close to her. This is getting dangerous. The elders might decide to make an example of us. They might, Una agreed. But look around. Look at all these species finally speaking up. Even if we fail, we have already won. We showed them that silence is a choice, not a requirement. Taeho nodded slowly. So what do we do now? Now we wait. We let them talk. We let them argue. And when they are ready, we will be here to help them build something new. On the screens, the debate continued. Old alliances crumbled. New connections formed. Species that had never spoken to each other began exchanging messages, sharing ideas, making plans. The elders watched helplessly as their control slipped away. 10,000 years of power, 10,000 years of order, 10,000 years of silence, all of it threatened by one small species that refused to follow the rules. And somewhere outside the station, the human fleet waited in the darkness. Not as a threat, but as a promise. A promise that humanity would never back down. A promise that the future would be different. The tension in the chamber was unbearable. Something was about to break. Everyone could feel it. The only question was, what would come next?